All right, today we're going to pull back the curtain on one of modern life's biggest mysteries. What actually happens when the power grid fails? Let's dive into the invisible world that keeps India shining. You know the feeling. We've all been there. It's something every single one of us in India knows all too well. One moment, life is humming along, and the next, it all just stops. And in that sudden, shocking silence and darkness, the exact same question flashes through millions of minds at once. What just happened? How could everything, absolutely everything, shut down so completely? Okay, let's get specific. Picture this. The final overs of a tense cricket match are on TV. The fan is whirring, giving you that little bit of relief on a hot night. And then, with no warning at all, poof, total darkness. The familiar sounds of your home are just gone, replaced by this abrupt, kind of unnerving silence. That's exactly where our story begins. You know, the reason that blackout is so jarring is because most of the time the system works, and it works incredibly well. It's a system of unbelievable complexity, like a constant nationwide high-wire act to keep the lights on for over 1 billion people.
So how does it all work? Well, at its simplest, electricity follows this 4-step journey. First, you've got these massive power plants generating all the power. Then, a huge network of high-voltage transmission lines, think of them like superhighways for electricity, carries it across the country. Third, substations step that voltage down and send it out locally. And finally, it arrives right at your home, ready to go.
So who manages this entire crazy high-wire act? That would be Grid India. Honestly, the best way to think of them is as air traffic controllers, but for electricity. Their job is to pull off this incredible balancing act, matching the amount of power being generated with the amount being used, across the entire country, every single second of every single day. No pressure, right?
But what happens when that balancing act fails? Well, to really understand that, we have to look back at the most traumatic example in our history, the Great Blackout of 2012. This was the moment when the high wire didn't just wobble, it snapped on an unimaginable scale.
Just take a second to look at that number. Over 600 million people. Let that sink in. That's nearly double the entire population of the United States. This wasn't just some local power cut. This was, by far, the single largest power outage in the history of the world.
And the frightening part is how fast it all happened. It started in the middle of the night on July 30th, when the northern grid just collapsed. Then, just as crews were scrambling to fix it, the unthinkable happened the very next day. At 1 in the afternoon, both the northern and the eastern grids went down together. Boom! 22 states plunged into darkness. So, what on earth caused this massive domino effect? Well, it wasn't just one thing. It was a perfect storm of problems. A weak monsoon meant farmers were using a ton of power for irrigation. Some states, desperate for electricity, started pulling way more than their allocated share. This put a huge strain on the transmission lines, causing key ones to trip and shut down, which then overloaded the next line, and you get the idea. The grid's defenses were just completely overwhelmed. This quote just perfectly captures how fragile and interconnected the whole system is. A single fault in one place can literally trigger a catastrophic chain reaction across thousands of kilometers. A glitch in Agra really can dim Mumbai. It's wild. So, the grid has collapsed. A subcontinent is in darkness. The question is, now what? How on earth do you even begin to fix it? How do you reboot a system this massive? It's definitely not as simple as flipping a switch.
To handle a crisis like this, Grid India has a playbook. Step 1 is something called a black start. Basically, you need an independent power source to jumpstart the dead grid. In 2012, hydropower from Bhutan was absolutely crucial. Once you have that first flicker of life, you have to prioritize. Power goes to the most critical services first: hospitals, railways, airports. Then, and only then, you slowly, carefully begin reconnecting cities, constantly balancing the load to make sure the whole thing doesn't crash all over again.
You know, as devastating as that 2012 crisis was, it was also a massive wake-up call. It led to some incredible progress. Before the blackout, engineers had pretty limited data. Now, they have real-time monitoring, Reactions were slower back then, but today, so many controls are automated. And maybe most importantly, a super sophisticated system called URTDSM was put in place. Think of it like an early warning system that helps engineers spot trouble and stop a cascade before it can even start.
And all this brings us back from this huge national system right down to you and me. Because while Grid India is managing that high-wire act, we are all on the wire with them. Our collective actions, believe it or not, have a real impact on the stability of the entire system.
So what can we do? It's actually the simple things. Turning off lights and fans when you leave a room. During those peak hours, especially on a hot afternoon, maybe turn the AC up just a degree or two. Choosing energy-efficient appliances. It all makes a difference. Each one of these small actions, when you multiply it by millions of people, really helps ease the incredible burden on the grid.
And that's really the core truth of this whole story, isn't it? We almost never think about electricity. It's just there, this invisible force powering our entire world. But the second it's gone, we feel its absence instantly. So the next time you flip a switch and that light comes on, just take a second to remember the incredibly complex, delicate dance of engineering that keeps India and you out of the darkness.